Just want to welcome everybody to tonight's RENNCAST live here on YouTube. I'm Bobby Mitchell, and it's a pleasure to be with you guys tonight. We have a lot to talk about. The big questions of the year have been what's going to be all about the LN Engineering and Flatfix Innovations merger, and what's going to be involved. And today we're going to be talking with Jake Raby all about those details, because a lot of people have had questions about what's going to be going on. And we also have a special guest with us tonight, Todd Lamb from Atlanta Speedworks. He's going to be joining us at 10 o'clock tonight. So I want you to stay with us for at least 30 minutes and meet him. He's got a lot of stuff to offer us tonight. And he's going to be, again, going to be joining us at 10 p.m. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our man, Jake Raby. Hey, Jake.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing? There's a lot going on. I guess the big questions that people have is, what's this whole merger with LN Engineering all about, and how that's going to affect the whole process, and how's that going to, how's that look for Flatfix Innovations? So I guess the first question is what is staying the same?
Well, I mean, honestly, everything is staying the same other than just kind of the face of the program. The ordering process is dramatically changed. We'll talk about that in a minute. And just the way that the engines are supported is pretty much going to change. But as far as what's staying the same, still the same quality, still the same people building the engines. It's something that we have been trying to do for a while, and we'll get to that backstory in a little while. But I mean, at the end of the day, Bobby, we're all about creating, building, developing, and I'm not about customer service. I'm just not. And it drives me crazy to do customer service, especially in today's world. I mean, it's really, things have really dramatically changed all around us, right? So, and last year, I pretty much just got to the point where I was like, look, if there's something I don't like to do, I'm just not going to do it. And that's not just with business. That's pretty much in life in general. I just got to the point where I'm like, that's that. I at some point in my life, probably 15 or 20 years ago, I was bitten by a tick. It created like Rocky Mountain spotted fever and Lyme disease and all this crazy stuff that I've been fighting. And I'm sitting here taking antibiotics and holistic medicines for it right now. But it pretty much just makes you look back at life and say, look, I'm not going to do things I don't want to do anymore. I'm just not going to. So what has stayed the same is the quality of the engines, the people putting them together, the quality of the components that's inside of them, and basically that, unapologetic, we're American, we're going to build the best damn engine we can, and we take pride in what we do, and that stayed the same, and that's going to stay the same. So if something had to change, I wanted it to be everything except the quality of the engine, because the one thing that I love is building and creating. The one thing I don't love is selling and supporting. And, we've been great at it. The thing is, it's really taken a lot out of my team, some of which have been here for 25 years at this point. Those people are still here, and they're going to stay here. But it's taken a lot out of us to stay on schedule, to stay on time and stay on budget. And we were losing money on every job because I proposed jobs ahead of time, and then inflation hit. And while I had a lot of parts for them, I didn't have every part. So some engines I lost a few $1,000s on, right? Some engines I broke even on. Some I made some money on. But at the end of the day, it taught me that this industry has been forever impacted and changed. And that meant that we had to be able to change with it. So I took the opportunity to make some strides and make some big changes, and it's going to make the quality of life better for me and all the employees. We're going to be able to be on a pace. We'll no longer have a schedule, anything like that. So, those things have basically, the important things have stayed the same. I'll put it that way. The quality, the componentry, and the options. We're not just, we go forward through this, people are saying, oh, they've created a mass production program. That couldn't be further from what we've done. We've actually gone the other way. We've put every option into everything. And that's kind of stayed the same because we've always sold engines fully optioned with everything they need. Now, could somebody add something to that? Yeah, but only if they wanted to, right? So that's a big difference between what we do. Everybody else tends to do things a la carte. They say, here's an engine, and then now, it doesn't even come with a water pump, or it doesn't come with an air oil separator. It doesn't come with a heat exchanger. And they let the person pick their poison. That's not what we do. I don't want to deal with that. I want to give them everything they need, even though it makes the number of the engine, the purchase price, look bigger. At the end of the day, it's actually the same thing they're doing a la carte if they actually outfit the engine the way it really should have been in the first place. It's just two different ways of selling things. So it's also staying the same in the fact that we're still doing things that way. We're still going to fully outfit engines. And actually, we're going to fully outfit them more than we ever have before.
Oh, sounds great. And I'll just say something about the tick. I mean, some people who've never experienced that will say, "Oh, it's just a little insect. What's the big deal about that?" And I can tell you from a personal story. We were out during the summer, a few years back, working out in the garden, getting our yard all fixed up, and Michelle, my wife, comes over and says, "I just don't feel good. Something bit me under my arm," and she started feeling a little sick. And I was like, "Oh, it's just an ant." And we found the ant on her body, and she started getting really sick. I mean, like, really sick. In fact, she's like, I feel like I've got like the stomach flu or something." So we jumped in the car, and as I was going down the road, I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy. It's just a little ant. I've been bitten by ants all the time." I looked over at her in the car, man, and she had lost all her color. I mean, she looked like a ghost, and she says, "I feel so sick." So we got to the emergency room, and they did all their tests and ran, antibiotics, steroids, that kind of thing in her, and she started feeling better again. And her whole body had an allergic reaction to this little ant. So the doctors were like, "Okay, Bobby, you need to go and get this ant, and we just need to see what kind of ant it is." So I knew exactly where she got bit, and I saw the nest, and I, grabbed some of these and took some really high res photographs of these ants, and they sent them off to a specialist at Clemson University. And this woman wrote me, and she said, "That is the Asian needle ant." And I'm like, "I've never heard of such a thing." He says, "While so small, their poison, if you will, can be toxic and can kill a human being." I was like, "You got to be kidding me." Those that are allergic to this thing. She said, "You got to do whatever you can." And she gave me this poison that is made by Bayer, the people that do aspirin. And I had to spread that stuff all around my house to kill those things. He said, "This will kill them." But the thing is with the Asian needle ant, the one way you can tell, if you put some in a jar, they can't, unlike normal ants, they can't climb up the jar. They don't have some reason they just can't. Their little paws can't stick to the glass, so they end up falling down to the bottom. So that was one way to know that they're the Asian needle ant. But it cracked. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And this woman from Clemson University says, "Mr. Mitchell, you've got to be very careful, because if she was to get bit again, it could be the end of her." So I learned a lot of respect for these little insects,
Well, I tell you, man, it's crazy because I've heard of Lyme disease for years. And when I was a kid, my grandparents would say, "Don't go in those woods. You're going to get Rocky Mountain fever and it'll kill you." And back then it would. And today, if it goes untreated, it can kill you still. Sometimes you wish you were dead because of how bad it makes you sick. We could do, I really at some point want to do a RENNCAST about this, because I guarantee you there's somebody listening to this right now that has Lyme disease and they don't know it, because it's so hard to be diagnosed. And what brought mine out was I got COVID in September of 2020. before, there it is. And I didn't get bit then. I got bit years ago. And they can tell that because of my antibody levels and things like that. They can tell that it's an old infection. But what you got to realize is when you go to the doctor to get blood work done, they don't test for this unless you ask for it. I didn't know that. So when I was so sick and my blood oxygen was 87, my blood pressure was over 200, and my entire body was inflamed, it was killing me. I didn't know what it was. And I asked the doctor, hey, did you check for Lyme disease in the blood work? No, we didn't do that, but we can. You have to request it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the woods a lot and I have my whole life, so check it. And sure enough, boom, that's what had been wrong with me. And if I hadn't said that, it would have still gone misdiagnosed, undiagnosed. So it's a big deal. It can be anything from just giving you gastrointestinal issues, stomach problems, things like that. It can do anything to you. But I was basically bitten by a Lone Star tick. That's the larger one that has the white spot on its back. And it also gave me alpha-gal syndrome, which is actually a allergic reaction to meat, any kind of mammal meat. So I'm eating fish, chicken, and emu and ostrich and that sort of thing. I can't eat any beef or pork. I can get away with venison, but beef is like my kryptonite. So that's a crazy thing about this is it puts bacteria in your blood, and then your immune system starts to attack that, and it puts you into an allergic reaction. So I don't want to take a lot of time with this, but it is something that weighed into this merger. It really did, because I'd been wanting to do this for a long time, but it was like the straw that broke this camel's back. I was so sick. I was sick of dealing with people. I was sick of business. I was sick of everything. I just wanted to be better. And I'm like, get people the hell away from me, because what made this worse than anything was any level of stress. So now I've eliminated that, So what's your next question? We'll talk about Lyme disease some other time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a scary story. It still amazes me that such a little creature can do so much damage, but I'll just end this and that. There's a Facebook group about Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain fever and alpha-gal. I couldn't believe it once I joined how many hundreds, probably thousands of people that have suffering with this from getting bit. But anyway, that's for another day. Yeah, so talking again a little bit about this LN merger and what that looks like for Flat 6 Innovations. I totally get, Jake, I mean, everybody knows that you have to be, if you've done work like you've done, and I don't have a clue at the level that you're at, but I know that as a technology person and doing minor jobs on my car, I don't want to be interrupted. I have to be cognizant of what I'm doing, because I know that if I'm not, I screw something up, and being pulled away to solve a problem. And I can imagine, and just for everybody that knows this, when I've been to his facility for taping, Jake's phone is ringing constantly. Constantly. It's to the point I had to tell my wife, I said, I think I'm just going to come onto the house, because Jake is getting called all the time about some problem with these cars. And of course, they want to talk to you. And I'm sure there's only so much that Judd can do sometimes, and he has to kind of refer these calls to you. So I totally get it. But I think what a lot of people want to know about with this merger, what is the backstory? How did this all come about? How long has this been going on? Is this just kind of like spontaneous reaction, or is this something that has been in the works for a while, but it just pretty much just came to surface during this last year, or what?
Well, no, I mean, this started in 1999 when LN Engineering was being formed. It wasn't even a company. It was a couple of college kids that had a project of making an aluminum nickel cylinder for a Porsche 914 engine. I had known one of the two partners in it at the time from when I was in California as a Marine. He found me after he got to college and stuff and wanted me to help him do the test work with it. It was a college project, and I said, okay, it may be a college project, but you guys need to make this a product, because this is something these engines have never had. At that time, the entire world, the industry was changing. Everything was going to China. That's when this Chinadium wave started of overseas manufacturing, and the race to the bottom actually started at that point. So I said, look, make these things in the USA, make good quality. I'll be your first customer. And I was their first customer. And that first set of cylinders is on my 356 engine. And it's a 914 engine and a 356, 2.6 liters, 227 horsepower. It's been doing that for 24 years now, 23 years, 23, 24, something like that. And it was actually in Panorama in December. That car was, with a bit of a story. That's when this started. And then Charles Navarro just took it from there, and he and his wife have really just built the company up. I've always been their developer. I've always created things for them. We've always been as separate as we are together. And people always thought we were together. And I'm like, nope, he's got his checking account. I got mine. And we still handle business that way. But we are technically merged. And that's a big difference. Basically, I'm building private label engines still as Flat Six Innovations, Raby Engine Development, Raby Enterprises, all kind of under the same household here. And they're selling them. It's just a private label distributorship is basically what it is. So is it really a merger? No. That is easy to say that. Is it a partnership? No, it's easy to say that. We've been technically partnered for years and years, but we are two separate businesses. So basically, when this really kicked in was 2015. Because I wanted to start getting to the point where I didn't see as many cars because we were having a hard time shipping vehicles. So I said, look, let's not see as many cars here. Let's go ahead and train our IMS Solution certified installers. There was about 25 of them across the country at that time. I said, let's train them and let them be the guys that pull the engines out of the cars. We will make sure they do the job the way we do. We'll share a checklist with them. We'll be on the phone when they start the car for the first time. They pull the engine out of the car. They ship it to us. We build the engine, ship it back to them. They put it in the car and it's complete. And a car doesn't have to go across the country or from Canada or wherever. They can do it without us seeing the car because at the end of the day, we are not car guys. I don't give a damn about your suspension. I don't give a damn about the color of your car. I don't care what options it has. I don't care. I'm an engine guy, not a car guy. And that's odd, but that is what makes people really need to do business with us is because we do one thing and we do it better than anybody else. We don't mix in anything with it. We don't mix in transmissions. We don't mix in anything. We just develop and build the best damn engines that we can. So I didn't want to see cars. So over the next 7 years, that program grew to the point that over half of our engines that were being built were being installed by certified installers that are now across the world, not just across the country, but across the world. So even before I started getting sick with this Lyme disease crap, I started expanding that program. So then we started collecting cores from across the world that were rest of the world cores. People don't realize there's two different kinds of engines. You have a US and Canada spec, and you have everybody else. And there are small differences in those engines. So we had to start collecting cores from overseas. So we had a rest of the world core bank for the odd little things that are different, or the cylinder heads that only have one cam sensor instead of having, two cam sensors on each engine. It only has one. That's just an example of some of the differences. So basically, we started building that whole thing up. And then when I got sick and I was like, to hell with this, I'm not doing it anymore. February of last year, I just tagged the line. So there was 4 or 5 guys that we had taken, put proposals in their hands. And I'm like, nope, cancel it, Judd, cancel it. I'm done. I'm not dealing with this anymore. Let's just shut the damn thing down because I was sick of dealing with human problems. I'm just about an engine. That's it. So I've been getting sick for months. I didn't realize it, but this really affects your psyche. I mean, my inflammation level was through the roof and it comes on you so slow, you don't realize that you're getting sick. That's the thing. So, and then by the time you're sick, you're really sick and nobody knows what the hell's wrong with you. So I just told Judd, cancel those proposals. The guys are, we just had a online webinar. 17 guys wanted to buy an engine and we didn't sell any of them. So at the end of the day, when that happened, I was talking to Charles at LN and he's like, look, why are you just going to throw this away? I said, I'm sick of people, dude. I'm sick. I don't care. I just want to be done with this. I don't want to deal with any more problems with cars. So, because these cars have gotten old, and sometimes the problems of the cars get in the way of us. I can't tell you how many times there's a wiring problem. Like right now, I've got a car with a wiring problem. It's a wiring problem that it didn't have when it came here, but now the front lights around the front bumper and stuff, the turn signals don't work. It's like we didn't touch any of that. How the hell did it just stop? The car's getting old enough that it actually has gripes. So those things were getting in our way. Again, I don't care about the car. I care about the engine. So it was breaking the focus, right? So he's like, look, we can make this work. Let us, you private label build the engines. You build them the way that you want to. You do your part, and then we'll do our part. And I said, okay, but I'm not talking to anybody ever again. I'm never talking to a customer again. I swear to God, I'm not doing it. No more support, no more phone calls, no more nothing. I'm working in my shop in the middle of a 50-acre field. I'm not going to be bothered by another human being, period.
Oh, I can just tell you as I jump in here, Jake, on that thought, I think that we're losing a lot of good shops because of this problem, where the cars, and I don't know if it's just a victim mentality that's in our society right now, and no one can deny it, the whole cancel culture and all this and that. But if you talk to a lot of shops, they're battling the same issue, whereas they'll go in for one problem and then the owner picks the car up and says, the radio doesn't turn on. I know that sounds silly.
Oh, yeah. Well,
But,
the classic one, Bobby, the classic one is when I brought my car here, the turn signals worked and now they don't. Okay. And I've been fighting this bullshit. I'll just come out and call it bullshit for years, because the classic thing of, well, it didn't do that before, even though it probably did, but people don't know how extensive our checklists are. They don't know how extensive the videos and the pictures of vehicles are. The checklist is insanity when we check a car in. We know everything about it. That's how I know that the turn signals on this other car worked when it came here, but they're not working now. So we never tell people what we had for ammunition, right? You don't want to show your hand. But when the guy's like, oh, that wasn't that way when I sent the car, and we pop out a video, yes, sir, it was. Here's your car. And it's right down to your VIN number. There's a video of your VIN number showing it. So, that's the thing. Not everybody does that, but along with what you're saying, the cancel culture thing, people have become basically impossible to deal with. Okay. And used to, I felt sorry for the person that worked at the customer service of Walmart, because they get bitched at for everything, and it's just hell on earth for those people. That's the way I felt, because, when you've done thousands of these jobs, okay, and you've interfaced with thousands of people with Porsche engines spanning from 1950 to about 2018 at this point, right? I'm building a 356 SC engine downstairs for Mr. Collier right now. We do Porsche engines across that entire realm. We're known for the M9X, but before that, I was known for air-cooled stuff. So, you've got thousands of people out there, and to be honest with you, you're never done with them, because they think that, I've had people text me or call me, hey, you built this engine for me 18 years ago. My name's so-and-so. Yeah, I know exactly who you are. I remember exactly what camshaft I put in that engine. I remember your compression ratio. I remember everything about your car. And sometimes I remember them if they were a pain in the ass. But at the end of the day, we're expected to support that forever. Go buy something from Microsoft. They don't support it for freaking more than 2 weeks or whatever it is. Apple's the same way. So why do we have to do that? And they're like, well, it cost me $30,000 for an engine. Well, I probably had less of a percentage of profit on that $30,000 engine than Microsoft did on that piece of software they're not even going to support, right? It's percentage, right? So,
I'll just tell you another quick example, a couple of quick ones. My wife and children drive Volvos. Believe it or not, we've had a good experience with Volvos. But the last time I took it in for service, they came out with an iPad that was integrated into their booking system, and the guy was really nice. He's new, but he's extremely nice. I've been dealing with him about a year. He was taking pictures all around the car and, checking the inside and outside. I said, man, what the heck are you doing? He says, it's the new world we live in. I have to check these cars before it
Oh,
goes
yeah.
into our engine base, because we get blamed for anything that is they think is different about the car. It's like, you would be surprised how many times we've been blamed for dents and stuff that never occurred on our end.
I'll tell you the one that just absolutely still boils my soul right now, right? A guy that complained that his ashtray in his 996 was rusted after he got the car back. And the ashtray's plastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I didn't even complain. I didn't even argue with the guy. I sent him a brand new one from Porsche. I never even replied. He just got it in the mail, and I'm done. But I'll tell you this, and as evidenced by the outpouring that was noticed in a forum this week, that I can't even go to that forum anymore. I banned myself from it. But people shared with me what they had written on there on our Flat Six Innovations Engine Owners Lounge on Facebook, which is a private group, and don't try to break in there if you don't own my engine and you're not the original purchaser, because I know everybody's name and you're not going to get in no matter how hard you try. But people try all the time. At the end of the day, though, I saw what those people were posting, and I see that we have a very loyal following. And this following is, they would follow me in any kind of battle. I mean, it's crazy what we've been able to develop with that through doing the right thing, right? And it's only through doing the right thing, being on time, being on budget, being square with people, total square dealings, and people appreciate that because they don't get it anywhere else. And sometimes they don't even really believe that we're going to be that square until we're done with them. And then they're super loyal. So, the people that I've vetted, and I have to vet the hell out of people. And there's a lot of people out there that don't like that. They're like, well, it's a secret society. You damn right it is. And it's going to stay that way. Because, if you do things where you only care about catering to 1% of the ownership of a vehicle, then that's it. If I wanted to make everybody happy, I'd sell ice cream. If I wanted to do mass production on this stuff, I would start a huge factory, and I would have all the same problems with all these crazy employee issues that everybody else does. I keep the circle extremely small, and I keep it extremely focused, and that's a big difference, right? But I see that Todd's joining us, and Todd, you're getting here at just the right time, because we're pretty much ready to bring in the next element of what we're doing here at Flat Six. So, Bobby, if you want to introduce Todd.
Oh yeah, Todd, I haven't had the honor of meeting you, but I did go to your website, and I know a lot of folks probably haven't. So I'm just going to read, if you don't mind, Todd, so I can introduce you to everybody out there in YouTube land. So basically, Todd Lamb is from Atlanta Speedworks, and on his website, he has a really nice little write-up about the history of Atlanta Speedworks and Todd. So I'm going to read that for everybody. It says, after a decade of pro racing and driver coaching, founder Todd Lamb needed a shop to support his clients. With an entrepreneurial background and degree in engineering, Todd decided to tackle the need himself by hiring a mechanic and opening a shop. In 2014, Todd hired Brian Zeldner, and both walked into an empty 5,000 square foot shop to start Atlanta Speedworks on November 1st of 2014. Originally a race team offering SCCA spec Miata track support and shop services, Atlanta Speedworks has grown to a 20,000 square foot and facility, and fields cars in numerous events, including IMSA track days, SCCA, NASA, Porsche Club Racing, and more. Todd, I'm Bobby Mitchell. It's good to meet you, man. Honored. I posted some images off your, I hope you don't mind, off of your website for those on Facebook, and I'm sure. And I started this whole segment off. You didn't see the beginning of it, where it had those two images of you in the nice race suit and everything, big McDonald's logo there and everything. That's pretty super cool, man.
So
tell us more, because that definitely does it. It probably doesn't even scratch the surface.
So what I was going to say at this point, before Todd gets to talk, right, is that Todd doesn't just have a 20,000 square foot facility anymore. Now he has an additional 5,000 square feet that has created his second location in Cleveland, Georgia at 47 Raby Drive, Suite B. Because now that we are building engines and developing engines, and that's all we're doing, that 5,000 square feet, we didn't need anymore. It was just, honestly, I was just going to rent it out for storage because I never dreamed in my wildest dreams, actually, that anybody close to us would ever really want that space. I was kind of thinking, hey, maybe a V8 shop or something would come in here because it's got one of the chassis dynos. It's got a lot of capabilities there. It's got shop, got hoist, it's got the whole 9 yards. It's basically a fully equipped Porsche shop. And so I was talking to Todd because we have a mutual customer, and I mentioned to him what I had done. And then a couple of days later, he calls me up. He's like, what are you going to do with that shop? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I said, I don't need it. I know what I'm not going to do with it. I'm not going to work on cars anymore in it once I get to the end of the line. And that basically means once our backlog that we had in February of last year was completed, I didn't need it anymore. So as of a couple of days ago, Todd is occupying our facility. And so basically, I'm the landlord. He's the tenant. It's property that I grew up on. It's property that we built from scratch. And he is going to also be able to offer all the services that we were offering for car support. So Atlanta Speedworks is going to be a super certified installer of all the Ellen Engineering, Flat Six Innovations, IMS products. He's going to be a super certified installer of our engines. He is a certified repair shop for our engines. So if you've already got one and it's got a lot of time on it, or if you miss a shift and break it, or you want to add something else to it, you want to upgrade it further, whatever, then he will be able to do that. And of course, he's going to also be able to install, basically extract and install the Flat Six Innovations engines sold exclusively by Ellen Engineering. So everybody's always like, hey, is this a partnership or whatever? Like I told Todd, the only ship that doesn't float's a partnership. So with this, if you buy an engine from LN, the one thing is guaranteed, you're not dealing with me. You're going to deal with Judd, my general manager at Flat Six Innovations. Been here for 10 years now. As of March 1st, Judd's going over to LN. He's going to be doing all the things that he's been doing for 10 years. For the last year, he's been doing all the tech support. He's been doing all of this stuff because I basically said I'm not doing it anymore. I've just been developing, I've been building, and I've been focused on trying to get well. So he's been doing that, but he's been going through basic on-the-job training at an extremely high level for a year now. So Judd will be able to sell you the engine. He'll be able to support the engine. And then if you want to ship the car to Flat Six Innovations' old facility, have Todd install it, you can do that. Also, you can send it to one of 38 or so other certified installers. About a dozen of those are going to be super certified installers like Todd. And how this all started with Todd was a few years ago. His lead mechanic, Brian Zellner, came to one of my classes. And honestly, I would have made you guys a certified installer back then if I didn't have the certified installer status. So now that I've kind of laid that out for everybody, now I'll let you talk, Todd, and you can tell them a little bit about what you plan to do in my old facility and how you're going to do business with it as a second location, and, what your focus is going to be.
Sure. Yeah. I appreciate the introduction, Bobby. It's great to meet you. We've been in business since 2014. We started out racing Porsches. I've been racing for 42 years, so I've been doing quite a bit of that. I've raced over 10 different Porsches in all sorts of different series. And so that's kind of how we got into this world. Between the Boxsters, the Caymans, and the 911s, that's just kind of our bread and butter. It's kind of what we do now. So we're very much car guys. Everybody in the shop loves racing. We love cars. We love performance. We love motorsports. And so for us, this is just kind of a natural progression. We somehow wound up doing PDK repairs. We're one of the few shops in the country that can repair a PDK or rebuild it. So that part of our business is going to move up to 47 Raby Drive, along with, as Jake said, some of the installation and basically anything we can do that's engine and transmission related, dyno related, that'll all be done up there. We'll still keep kind of our motorsports operations down in Gainesville, Georgia. It's about 35 minutes away, so still, within easy reach. And yeah, we're very excited about this. This is just one of those things, I guess, kind of a right place, right time. And, we've kind of known about each other for a long time. And this just really made sense, I think, to both of us when we started talking about it. And, the stars aligned and here we are. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, and I'm super excited about it because I'm glad to see that all the things that I built there are going to continue being used the way that I intended them to be used. I did not like the fact that I was going to end up renting the place out for cabinet storage. You know what I mean? I just didn't like that. But at the end of the day, I was just so done with it. And we've talked about this, and basically I wanted to continue doing what I loved, which was building and developing. And I just didn't want to do the other part. So now, knowing that you guys have the vast experience that you do, I believe that as we work together, there's a lot of things that I'm always testing and developing. Some of those things, it'd be nice having you guys handy to say, hey, throw this on a track car. We know what it does on a street car. We know what it does on the dyno. Here, take this do some test work with it. Tell me what you think. So that's another thing that I think is cool. And, because we've never really focused on that. We've been so busy solving problems that I haven't really cared about burning race gas and slick tires. I just haven't. So, when you kind of get in this like me, I mean, my competition is the engine. I don't, there's no competitor to us with what we do at the level that we do it and the way we focus on things. So the only competitor, one, is the Porsche factory, and two is physics, So being able to get some other data is going to be cool. And having this process down, which I'm going to go over with everybody after we kind of get done with our introduction here, how the whole ordering process will work and where the certified installer comes in with that, whether it's you or another certified installer, it's always going to be the same. But the cool thing is, if somebody does choose to bring the car to 47 Raby Drive and have that done, you still have all the same tooling capabilities and stuff, and you got your crew. And we're going to be working from now until end of the line, basically, with continually training your crew, right? So, as we're in this transitional period, we've got about another 14 to 16 cars that are going to have to be finished. So everybody out there, hey, Todd is going to be getting trained. Brian's going to be getting trained further and further with this. They will be the most highly trained certified installers there are because they're right here and they're going to be finishing these jobs alongside of us. And I think that really adds an element to that's dynamic across the board. And also it's going to help me to further refine the process for the other certified installers based on what we need to focus on to further train you. So what we experience there is going to help me train everybody else, because now that we're getting close to the new program being the big rollout, we've already sold one engine, by the way, just as a bit of a beta test. And we'll talk about that a little later. But basically, as we get closer and closer to all the engines being sold by Ellen Engineering and supported and then put in by certified installers, we have to get the other certified installers retrained, because some of them have been part of the program since 2011, 2012. They've had some continual training, but now the volume just got turned up, right? So we're going to be able to make this better for everybody. And that's not just from the installation perspective, not just from the engine sales and support perspective, but we're going to make it better for the person buying it, because now all the things that people didn't like about the old program are gone. And they can still send the car and have the engine taken out and put back in by you guys. And I just don't have to deal with that. So I'm super happy about this.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing because yeah, we get not only the benefit of your experience and all of the things that you've done, your trials and all the things you've been through and all the things you've learned along the way, but even bringing then our expertise with transmissions and suspension and brakes and all the other components of the car. It's just kind of a great setup. It's a one-stop shop if anybody wants work done.
Yeah, and see, that's something we were never able to do. We never wanted to do it. I would have people all the time that were like, well, while the car is there, the engine's out of it, while it's there, can I have these brakes put on? Can I have this suspension put on? Can I have this bumper put on? And I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. We are engine guys and engine guys only. I don't give a damn about any of that stuff, right? So this is a great thing because while the car is down, you guys can use your expertise with those other systems that you know a lot better than we do, and you can add that stuff to the car. So the person can get back a fully refined vehicle, not just a vehicle that has a new heart, but a vehicle that has new shoes and a new heart and suspension and the whole 9 yards. And that's never been a possibility before. Because I just didn't care about it. So and the facility is great for doing that other work because everything's there that you need. So, being able for you guys to come in there and basically take my equipment that we were using, that's also another awesome thing. And guys, about the only thing I took out of the facility was my TIG welder. That's about it. They got everything else. And that was great for me because I was not looking forward to moving over about 35 years worth of stuff. I was not looking forward to that. And I really didn't want to put cabinet storage in there. So, but this is going to be really good. And I can't wait to see how far it goes. There'll be some teething problems on both sides. We have to learn how everything's going to work out. But the good news is all of that can get done over the next 6 months while we're working through and getting to the end of the line. So, when we get to those first guys, that'll be the first people having these engines installed in this manner. All those problems will be worked out. So that's great.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Bobby, what do you think about this? You've been with me on this ride for a long time. I mean, what do you think about it? What am I always bitching to you about, right? I'm always like,
Yeah, and I see it firsthand. Todd, I met Jake in 2018, and we kind of hit it off. We met at a Cars and Coffee, and my background in broadcasting and communications and technology and stuff, I think I could help him. He had done some work with PCA, and I thought, wow, this guy is really great on camera. So I think that the world has a lot to receive from Jake and his knowledge and stuff. So I wanted to help him out, and we started the YouTube channel and didn't make a whole lot of money at it, but that's okay. I volunteer mostly our time, but we were able to collaborate on an engine assembly video series, and it's doing very well. And actually, yes, I do make money off. For anybody that's asking, yes, I do make money, made money from doing that. Yeah, when I've helped him, Todd, he started, getting me plugged into a lot of his technologies that he uses to communicate to clients. And I started to see a lot of what the things they ask, and it's a crazy thing they ask. You weren't here when I was saying this, but when we've done filming together, when I go out to his training and research facility, Jake's, and I'm sure this is probably the same way with your shop too, the phone just rings all the time. And his phone and the text is going beep, 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 beep. Everybody wants to hear from Jake Raby. And they don't want to talk to Judd. They want to talk to the man himself. You can't talk to her. You can't talk to him. They want to talk to the man. Right. So it's kind of like, I was going to talk to my wife. I said, I think I'm just going to come to the house. I just can't get I can't get one take done because he's constantly having to go handle an issue. So I can see it as an engine builder. And we did this whole series, and this engine is in 1 million parts when we started this engine. And all the times I've done small jobs on my engines, I have to be very cognizant. I have to be almost in isolation, or I screw something up. I get the wrong torque value. I miss a part. I install it and go, oh my gosh, did I install the such and such? And in the times that I get interrupted, that's when I usually screw something up. So I totally get that. I totally get that, wanting to be completely immersed in building these engines and stuff. So I totally, and as I was kind of a fly on the wall of his technology and start to see the things that people are asking, the crazy stuff that's non-related to any of the work that they actually did. But I can see how you could just almost lose your mind. But Todd, I do have a question for you, man.
Sure, go ahead.
Since starting working on the Porsches, specifically talking about the M9X, the M96 and M97 engines from 1997 to 2008, what are some of the most common problems that you've had to deal with on the engine side?
Well, I would say, the biggest ones that we see is, and a lot of this comes from our track experience, oil starvation, over revs, that sort of thing, engine killers, essentially. That's a lot of the stuff we've dealt with in the past. While we are versed in engines, we're not an engine builder. That's Jake's job. That's kind of why we're working with him. And so, yeah, we, IMS bearings, things like that, just all your common stuff, AOS going bad, that sort of thing. A lot of bore scoring we see. That's been, especially in some of the classes that have to run stock engines in Porsche Club racing, a lot of bore scoring. So yeah, it's a lot of catastrophic failures we've seen in engines on the track.
Yeah, and Jake, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. The whole IMF bearing thing, for the audience that's just joining us, that kind of overshadowed a lot of the problems with these engines. And when I met Jake, Jake was saying, that cylinder bore scoring was actually our first mode of failure ever recording. Am I right about that, Jake?
Yeah, the very first problem that we attacked was actually cylinder slip sleeves, where the early engines, the sleeves would slip because a large portion of engines made in 1999 had a repair sleeve put in them from the factory because the Porsche factory burned down that built the engines. So they actually had to repair engines that were in brand new cars because they were so backlogged. And if they wanted to fill orders with a new 996, they had to do that. So many of those failed. So that was the first thing. The bore scoring stuff, we knew about cylinder problems before we ever saw an IMS bearing fail. But then when that started, it really kicked in. But the first time I took one of these apart, I'm like, what idiot put the sealed bearing in here, right?
I think the scary thing about that, Jake, is that with cylinder bore scoring, it's like a slow death. I mean, if you catch it early enough, you can have corrective action, but with the bearing goes bad, it just takes everything out.
Yeah, well,
and it's just like an instant heart attack.
I mean, bore scoring, I've seen people run these engines to absolute death with bore scoring, and they never catastrophically fail. They will get so much carbon in the oil that it scores every surface inside the engine, because it's like you're driving around with small diamonds in your oil, right? Because the carbon is so abrasive. And if you don't have ring seal, the ring seal is what keeps basically the combustion on the top side of the piston and the oil on the bottom side. And, ring seal's got to be there. So if the cylinder's scored, you've got a pathway for that combustion byproducts to get by and lace the oil. So not only are you consuming oil because oil's coming by the rings and getting in the chamber, but now you have carbon going by the rings and getting in the oil. And that's way worse than oil consumption, right? So people will drive these cars because they don't want to fix them, or they don't know how to fix them, or they can't afford to fix them because they got ripped off because they were sold a car that somebody knew had this, and they did not listen to us. They did not do a PPI, invasive PPI, and they drive it until everything inside of it is throwaway. Even the cam caps and everything, that the camshafts themselves are scored and galled because of the carbon-laced oil. And a lot of times people will end up running the engine low on oil because it consumes so much they can't pour enough in it before it consumes that. So that's a big problem. And of course, Todd sees this too. A lot of the racers, especially in the spec classes, I'll go out and say, I hate class racing. I absolutely loathe it because I don't want anything to limit me. That's one reason why my wife has 5 land speed records, is because land speed racing is the only true racing sport I believe that's left. They tell you how big the engine can be and what fuel to put it on. That's it. It's either a fuel altered class or it's X displacements, and that's it. They don't care what parts you use. They don't care how lightweight they are. They don't care how light the car is. Don't care how heavy the car is. Nobody gives a damn about any of that. It's just fuel and size, period. You can get the size however you want. So these classes where you have to keep the engine almost stock and the rule books are written by lawyers piss me off. I don't care anything about it, because I'm a gray area guy, right? I mean, Smokey Unick was my hero. Anybody that can take, the fuel, the roll bar and add fuel capacity because the roll cage has fuel inside of it, that is the guy that I like. And he did that. He did many things like that. And most of the time he didn't get caught, but I like that. But at the same time, these classes, it's all gentleman stuff. Hey, and everybody's out there racing for a $12 Chinese trophy. You can win more money at the local dirt track on a Friday night racing a Ford Pinto than you can these cars. But
Yeah,
at the
Tom,
end of
what
the
is your
day,
thought
a
on
lot
that?
of that stuff, it doesn't really appeal to me. But what does appeal to me is physics and beating things with physics. So I think that Todd and I will really be able to learn even more together, because a lot of those classes where he's seeing this bore scoring and he's seeing these other things, I know how to keep that from happening, right? We know how to address some things and do some things early on that will keep that from happening a little bit longer. But in these spec classes, a lot of guys, at least back when I was doing a lot of spec Boxster work, when it first started, actually, guys were just putting used junkyard motors in the cars, right? I mean, it was just like you run it, you pop it, you pull it out, you put another one in it, you pop it, you just keep that up. Because back then, nobody was even building these things. Most people didn't know how to build them. So how has that changed now, Todd? Are people building these things? Has it got to the point of like Spec Miata where guys are going crazy with trying to get everything within the rules to make, 1/10 of a horsepower?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gone from the days of junkyard engines to fully built, fully blueprinted engines. Making sure all the tolerances are at the right end of the spectrum. Doing everything you can do to get every last horsepower out of an engine. When you're going head to head with somebody down a straightaway, in a spec Boxster, for example, 2-3 horsepower makes a huge difference. That's a car length or more. That's a pass going down a straightaway without even really having to try. So yeah, it makes a pretty big difference. And as you said, spec Miata is, even a half a horsepower is a big deal. So, the race at Daytona today with the Global MX5 Cup cars, they're all spec. It's just amazing to see, 20 cars all in a line within a second of each other finishing a race. So it's really, now this racing stuff is definitely on the cutting edge of performance, and it's a knife edge. So, getting every last ounce out of a engine is pretty key.
Well, and what I don't like about it is, and it's pretty crazy, that my least performance street car engine doesn't even meet the rules of these racing classes. And people don't believe that. I'm like, basically nothing that I'm doing here falls within the guidelines of what that racing class will allow for a street car. We're taking a street car, and it's built better than what you can build a race engine. And it's because, and obviously, it's because people, they want to breed drivers. You want to drive it, right? Instead of have technology win it. It's not like the old Can-Am days. I mean, I think that was the pinnacle, but was because of all the technology and the things that were coming out and how crazy they could go. And I love that. My daughter races a junior dragster, and the classes are really tight, and it's for kids, but there's an outlaw class. And when she gets to turn 12, she can run that, and then they don't care what you bring. So that we're all about that. But it's interesting to see how that spec classes changed, and spec 996 came along, and then spec Cayman came along. How are those classes doing? Because I'm so out of touch with that stuff. I haven't done it in 5 years. So, are those classes expanding?
Yeah, I'd say Spec 996 didn't seem to take off quite as well, but the Spec Cayman class is really starting to grow. We've got 2 Spec Caymans in our shop right now. And yeah, that class, it's a great example of a class that's, it's a step above Spec Boxster, but it's not into the super high dollar stuff like GTB1. It's just a lot of fun. And again, it's the same thing though. I mean, you've got to have a well-prepped car. You've got to have good horsepower, and having something that's reliable and well-maintained is very important.
Now, on the Spec Cayman, are they using the 3.2 cars for that, or the 2.7 cars?
That's actually the 3.4.
Oh, the 3.4 car. Okay, that's right. Yeah. What am I thinking? There's no such thing as a 3.2 Cayman. I'm thinking Boxster S. Yeah, so that's the M9721 engine, and those things blow up worse than anything. I mean, you can't even find a core, and they all fail the same way. It's like a guy will send a ticket in, and it's like, I see it says something like 07 Cayman S, and I'm like, I know what's going to happen here. He has Caymanitis, okay? And he's going to say, I was at Sebring, I was coming out of turn 17, and then this happened and that happened, and I was on the right side of the track, and I got back to the shop, and my mechanic says that my piston came disconnected from my crankshaft. Yeah. Happens every freaking time. And that's why you can't find parts for those crankshafts, crankshaft carriers, blocks. They're all blown to bits. They all fail the same way. So knowing what I know about those classes, that'd be the last car I'd want to race.
I remember seeing that. I think it was a 997 M97 engine that blew up on the track. We did a video on that. Well, it was a connecting rod that just melted or something.
Yeah,
it
and that
went
same
medieval.
That same thing happens to those Cayman S engines. The exact same thing, and they usually end up tossing connecting rod number 1 or number 6. Sometimes it's number 4. Usually, it's very seldom it's 2 or 5. But and I know why they do that. And in stock form, you're kind of asking for it with those engines. I mean, if I was going to race in that class, I wouldn't even run a stock engine at all. I would pull it straight out of the car and build it. And I would adjust the things that need to be adjusted to make it proper. And that doesn't mean you have to throw a bunch of bolt-on stuff on it. We've raced these cars back when the classes were different than they are now, when these cars were newer, and we're able to campaign an entire season in one of those classes with no bolt-on oil starvation things at all. None of that. It all came from blueprinting inside the engine. And keeping the oil the right temperature. That's a big thing.
Oh, I was about to say, there's a couple of things that are talking.
Yeah.
Oil cooling and oil pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything.
Oil pressure loss in the corners. It just, there's some people keeping the data loggers. And on the M96 and M97 engines, they really lose oil pressure in the corners.
Well,
and
if you remember, Bobby, a year or two ago, when our favorite people on RENNCAST were starting that thread, okay? When they started that thread, day number 1, what did I say? The problem
about it cooling
is
oil
cooling. That is the problem. And I'll be damned if maybe 50 pages later in that thread, somebody else had the data to support it. And I'm like, look, you can have all the squiggly lines you want. When you take this stuff apart, you see it blown up the same way over and over. And when you take the cars to the track yourself and you just watch the oil pressure gauge and you see that oil pressure gauge deviate a hell of a lot more on lap 10 than it did on lap 3, the one thing that's a constant there is you got a big temperature change between those two. So when people call me up and they say, hey, I was on the track, and I'm like, stop. Okay. I say, you were about 15 to 20 minutes into a session. All of a sudden, you ended up going into a turn. You ended up looking in the rearview mirror. You saw smoke, and then you heard a bang, and you pulled off on the side of the track. And they're like, how did you know? I'm like, that's what happens every time. So you never had those people call and say, I was on lap 2 or lap 3. And if they ever did that, they had been on the track 1 or 2 other times that day and injured it. but it didn't blow up. So the next time they went out, it blew up on lap 1 or 2. It was injured on lap 10 of the last session. So that's what people don't realize. So it's just practical application and seeing this hundreds of times the exact same way over and over again. And Todd, it's the same way with you, right? I mean, look at when you guys have had failures. When do you typically see those in a session or toward the end of a race in the beginning? What have you seen with that?
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on. We haven't had any specific failures on track, at least nothing specifically blown up. But yeah, we've got aim data in the car, in every race car we build, and you can definitely see over time. We actually have the dashes set up where they'll actually change color and basically tell you like big problem kind of thing. It'll flash in your face. And yeah, you'll be going through, turn 3 at Road Atlanta, coming up over the hill and going over a bump. And, especially when it's 90 degrees out, things get hot. You're running 260, 270 degree oil temps. Finding the right fluid's key. Getting some cooling is key. But nonetheless, every time you go over that jump through turn 3 at Road Atlanta, you'll see the dash flash for a split second because it lost oil pressure, or it got to our threshold anyway. And yeah, over time, that just eats up engines. And same thing, Road America through the carousel. Man, it's a long, sustained corner. You get oil starvation there big time.
I mean, I think the tracks that eat these engines more than any track is, Mid-Ohio eats a lot of them. Road America eats a lot of them. Sebring, because it's so hot and there's so many turns. Barber eats a lot of them in the hot summertime because it's so technical. But we see those in Coda. Coda's also eating a bunch, right?
Yep.
You don't see nearly as many from the West Coast tracks. You just don't see it. And you don't see it you don't see those calls happen early in the spring. You don't see them happen in the fall. When they used to have the DE, and I guess they still have it in the first weekend or second weekend of August at Road Atlanta, the PCA, you were going to get 2 or 3 phone calls. The following Monday, stuff was going to blow up, dude. The phone was going to ring. And sometimes I was there, but I would never put a sticker or anything on my car. And I would always grid like down on the far skid pad, like way away from everybody. I don't want anybody bothering me. I'm doing some crazy shit down here. Leave me alone. I'm not even here. So, and sometimes I would see them blow up and then I would go up and talk to the guy, But one of the main things with these engines from the factory, they are way too tight on the internals, way too tight. When you are able to adjust clearances and you're able to make a crankshaft and you're able to make connecting rods and you're able to put bearings in these engines that are not Porsche bearings and they are not aftermarket bearings. They are original equipment bearings from a much more superior engine that was not inhibited by accounting, right? When you're able to do that and you adjust those clearances, you automatically see the oil temperatures drop at making the same power. You automatically see it. So shear is a big thing. When the oil shears, it's done. So the tighter the tolerances are and the higher the oil temperatures are, the quicker shear comes in. Once you get to shear point, the oil's done and it's going to blow up, period. Once the oil shears, that's it. You've got metal on metal contact. That protective film of oil is no longer there, or it's so thin that it's being squeezed out by the compression of things. When that happens, pop goes the weasel, right? That's why some guys will put heavier grade oil in it as a Band-Aid. They're like, well, I didn't see as big of an oil pressure problem when I had a heavier grade oil. That's because you're just making it last a little longer. Maybe now you can get another 3 or 4 or 5 laps before it does the same thing. But at the same time, that heavier oil actually gets hotter faster. So some of the test work I did with Lake Speed Jr. on that, right there in the facility that you've got now, Todd, we tested 13 oils in a week. And back to back to back to back. A lot of them were test oils that never came out yet. And we did it in 5 different cars. And it was incredible what we saw with coolant and oil temperatures in tests done in the exact same ambient temperatures with different oils. You could go to a heavier grade oil like a 2050. That engine would get to a 280 degree oil temperature about 5 minutes faster than the same engine in the same temperature running a 1040 or a 540 oil. So, it's a Band-Aid problem. So there's a lot of things you can do when you actually build one of these engines up to make it live and last longer. And some of that's not just components, right? It's components are a big deal because these things were built by the lowest bidder when it comes to componentry, right? But better balancing, that's a big one. Everybody throws that out the window. Now you guys have an engine balancer 50 yards from you. In our machine shop that we've retained on the actual engine division at Flat 6 there. So balancing is a big deal. Engines shake themselves apart, and we see a difference with that. You can have an engine that basically it'll even pull ignition timing because the harmonic created by the imbalance is picked up by the knock sensors, and then it tells the ECU that the engine's detonating, but it's not. It's picking up that vibration and confusing it with detonation, so it backs the ignition timing down, and then you lose horsepower, and not just lose horsepower, but now all your ignition timing events are retarded, so it runs the exhaust gas temperature up. So if you guys are ever wondering why you keep blowing exhaust gaskets or you can't keep the headers tight because the EGTs are too high, right? So there's a lot of symptoms like that. Your exhaust keeps cracking, stuff like that. Then it's like, okay, something's backing the timing down. So all these things are symptoms of bigger problems, but it's going to be great to kind of get back into some of that with you guys and see what you guys are seeing as far as breaking stuff on the track. So we'll learn from you and you'll learn from us.
Yeah, sounds great. I'm very much looking forward to it. And yeah, I think we'll be able to bounce a lot of good ideas off each other.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
I have a question for both of you guys. From the factory, what are the most track happy cars? Are we talking the GT3, GT4, or anything?
I'm gonna let Todd answer
all
that
the
one.
Carrera cars
Yeah.
are just
Yeah,
what is it?
I think, and a lot of this might come from driving experience, but it also applies. I've like I said, been racing a long time, so when I jump behind the wheel of a car, I'm ringing it out, 110%. And the cars that seem to take it just completely in stride, like GT3s, GT3 RS, the Cayman Club Sport, GT4s, just awesome. Those things are very well refined. They don't get nearly as hot. I think they've just been, refined over the years to the point where the new stuff now is just so good. So yeah, from the driver perspective, the newer the car, the newer the Porsche specifically, the more refined it is. And, they'll just take all the abuse in the world for the longest time. But yeah, we definitely have, the older stuff is a lot more finicky than M96, M97, a lot more finicky in the care and feeding. And when you ring one of those out 110% on the track, you're doing it.
Todd, what would you say to the average Carrera owner we speak a lot to the M9X because there's a lot of those cars out there. And one reason, as you probably are aware, people can afford them, especially the Boxsters. Right now, the Boxster 97s, I see them now being dumped on Marketplace for under 10,000 running cars. So you can see that someone that could have never been able to afford these cars will say, hey, I'm going to get this Boxster. I'm going to get it ready for the track. What would your advice be to those people?
So
what to do to the car specifically?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a range, right? I mean, we talked a little bit, we touched already on cooling, making sure you got the right, really good oil in there that's going to handle the temperature. We've got, we can add third radiators, things like that if needed, oil coolers, AccuSumps, that sort of stuff. But when it comes to the other components on the car, making sure the brakes are flush with a good fluid like SRF. From there, brakes, in terms of brake pads, just making sure you got something that's track worthy. Street pads do not hold up on the track once they get hot.
Oh,
for cold temperature. Yeah.
I have read, and I want people to know I'm not some kind of resident expert, but I have been around the forums for almost 8 years, and I enjoy reading. I read the good ones and I read the bad ones. And one of the common things that I see with people taking these, just say average Boxster or a 911 to the tracks, they don't think about the brakes until it's too late. And the brakes fade and they lose control of the car. And they go in, run it off the track and usually damage it to the point where it's undrivable,
Yeah, and that's
so simple.
We do. We sponsor all of the track days that Porsche Club does at Road Atlanta and Atlanta Motorsports Park. So we're there actually providing free support to anybody that needs it in the paddock. So I would say you just completely nailed it on the head. Most of what we see is people needing brake pads, needing a brake bleed. Just, they don't really fully understand that, the brakes are a very important component on the car. On the track, they get very, very hot. Drive on the street, yeah, they stop fine, but you start getting things hot, the pads fade with heat. The fluid boils because it's got too much water in it, too much moisture, and the next thing you know, the car's not stopping. So yeah, that's probably our number one issue at the track, and we sell a lot of brake pads right at the track.
Oh yeah, and I know a lot of people talk about, the ceramic rotors, the Porsche ceramic, which are like crazy expensive. I can't remember, but it blew my mind how much they wanted for the ceramic brake system. But you have an alternative for people that have traditional rotors, correct? That you could put pads on. Would you say if they came to you, you'd want to change out the rotors and the pads on the regular braking system, or would you want to change out the caliper? And you said the fluid to flush the fluid, but
yeah,
are you looking at the whole kit and caboodle or what?
I mean, we certainly have. The beautiful thing about Porsche engineering is, for the most part, if you've got say stock engine and maybe a little bit of enhancement on the suspension, the stock calipers are perfectly adequate. Stock rotors are pretty good. We've got some better rotors out there, some slotted rotors. Cross drilled are just, no good whatsoever, but slotted rotors are really good. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, if you just said, hey, you know what, I want to go out and bomb around on the track for a track day, bring my car out, you really just need to worry about, brake pads and brake fluid, and making sure that you've got, fresh fluids in the engine. And if you're going around at 80%, 85%, you're going to be fine for a whole weekend, several weekends for that matter. So.
And one thing I'll say about that is when I did a lot of track days, like around 2001, 2002, and I actually did them in my old 912E. I did like 1,700 miles around Roebling with that car. And I put 160,000 miles on that engine, even with all that track time on it, which, it's a slow car. It's a momentum car, but I really learned how to drive good on driving that car. It's not fast, but, it handled better than a 911 because it was so much lighter behind the axle. But, one thing that I noticed when I was there is that people take cars to the track that are barely street worthy. And when they have this, they have the track inspection done, the people are just signing off on it when they take it to a shop. And some of these cars are not even safe. They got brake fluid in them that's been in there for 5 years. It's soaked with water. Stuff loose. We had a guy lose a wheel. Every time I came in off the track, I'd put a torque wrench in my lug nuts every time. I'd come in, I would check them before I went out. I would check them. I'd come from an aviation background, working on helicopters, and everything gets loose. So, but I was just blown away by how haphazard people went to the track. Is it still that way? Are people still just signing these inspection forms off and taking half-ass prep cars to the track?
It's certainly gotten better. I think everybody's just been a little bit more educated, and that experience has kind of been passed around the paddock, I would say. We still see, we do still see some of that are cars that are under prepped. But for the most part, it hasn't been too bad. But there is just a lot of learning to be done. I mean, a lot of people are just so focused on, oh, I was slow because I was 1 pound down or up on tire pressure. It's like, that's not it. So, a lot of things too. I mean, things that we're doing at the track that you don't do on the street, at least I hope not. Rumble strips, right? Running over rumble strips. That just knocks the suspension settings completely out the window, ruins shocks over time. You can easily knock the toe out, knock the camber out. That's something we see a lot on street cars too, is, people go out and tires on these cars aren't cheap. When you're buying a 305 or a 315, it's a pretty expensive tire. And especially if you're running Michelin's or something like that, you start wearing out, the outside shoulder real quick because you don't have enough camber on a street setup or a street alignment. And so that's something that we tend to do a lot of, as well as adding camber to the car and playing with toe settings to, eliminate or at least reduce tire wear, so the tires wearing evenly. So just a lot of stuff like that. But, for the most part, if nothing else, I do encourage anybody to ask some questions and come out and have fun with their car. It's, it's like most fun you can have with your clothes on, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, with my old 912, and I still have the car, and it's still just like it was. I've freshened the engine up one time in all those years. I really enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed driving that car on the track more than I did a 996 or any of the other cars that I've taken. I don't know why. I just did. Even though I was one of the slowest guys out there, it was just cool to be able to do it. And I mean, a 912V has got, VW bus front calipers on the thing from the factory. It's a touring car. By no means was that thing ever really designed to go to the track. But it did a good job, and I would just make sure everything was tight and I would go there and, drive 5 hours to Savannah in an old air-cooled car and then beat the hell out of it and then drive home. A lot of times these water-cooled cars can't do that. I can't tell you how many guys call me, and the first time they went to the track, they popped the engine the very first time, and it's not because they missed a shift. It's because the planets just aligned and it wasn't their day. So I was thinking about that the other day. A guy called me, is like, man, I went to a Roebling day, and he was from Hiawassee. And he went to Roebling and he had to have the car towed home, and because he made it down there, he hurt the engine, and then on the way back, it blew up. So, it's funny how you can have a old, 1976, 914 engine basically in a 912, and it can live better than some of these more modern cars. So, but anyway, it's going to be interesting to learn more about what you guys are doing, and it'll be interesting teaching you guys what we do. And I might go back to the track sometime. I haven't been to the track since 2010, something like that, because the car that I used to take was the same car that my wife land speed raced. Well, every setting that you have for a track day is wrong for land speed racing, right? Everything. So, you're talking about having better brakes. Well, in land speed racing, we would actually pry the brake pads away from the rotors because we didn't want the friction. You would take out the camber, you would take out everything because the car just needed to drive straight. We just wanted enough downforce from the wing just to make the car drive straight. And we lost 6 miles an hour by adjusting a taco wing on an early 996 factory aero car. 6 miles an hour back to back, one click with that was 6 miles an hour. So we're taping up radiators and taking windshield wipers off and doing everything we can to find 1/2 of 1 mile per hour. So, once she started doing that, it was completely ass backwards from taking the car back to Road Atlanta.
Well, we'll definitely have to get you out in one of our champ cars this year and come have some fun with us.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right. So, Todd, Bobby and I are going to stay on here for a while because now I want to take guys through the ordering process. And you can go watch us and you'll be able to see everything that I'm saying. But really, you're going to be a super certified installer. You already are. And we'll be talking about the super certified installers and certified installers across the board. The only difference is that you'll be occupying our old space, and we'll be teaching you all the things that are the new way of doing a lot of this stuff that we're just now refining. And a lot of it's going to be getting refined along with you. And then once I learn it with you, then I got to go teach all the other guys what we've already taught you. And I'll just say that it's going to be cool to see cars coming in and out of there that you're repairing that I don't have to deal with. I can't wait.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing some more of the old stories from all the things that have happened and creating some new stories. So yeah, looking forward to it all. Thanks, guys.
All right, man.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Todd.
joining us.
Pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
All
Yeah,
right,
so
Jay.
this is going to be cool, So everybody out there, I swear I didn't plan any of this. I mean, I was just talking to him. He had a 2012 GTS owner. The guy had bore scoring. They built a transmission for him, and He wanted to have us build the engine, and I'm like, nope, because I haven't sold an engine since last February. And we just started talking, and then there you go. And then now I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do in my facility, and he doesn't have to worry about how he's going to expand because it's perfect. And he's got the chassis dyno there, and I'll still be able to use that. And he'll be able to use that, and he's got all of the equipment and all that sort of thing. So, that 5,000 square feet, we didn't need anymore because we're not repairing any more cars. We've already stopped taking on all that. About 3 years ago, we stopped doing IMS solution work. We stopped doing repair work. We just wanted to build engines. So people might look at this like, man, they just changed everything, but that's not the case. We've been working on this for a decade to get to this point. And really, we've been working on it since 2015, really hot and heavy, because every year we would do a few more of what we called the premier jobs, where, somebody would take the car to a certified installer, that installer would pull the engine out, ship it to us, and then we would ship it back. Now, that program's changed a little bit, right? I'm going to explain how this whole thing works. But before we get into that, did you have any other questions for me?
Well, I was just, of course, the questions that people will ask is, what specifically has changed and what would be the ordering process? And how will they go about that?
Well, the main thing that's changed is you're not dealing with me. It's my engine. I built it, but I'm done with that. I'm absolutely done with that. If somebody says, well, I'm not going to buy the engine unless I can deal with you, then I'm like, okay, go buy it from somebody else. And it's probably going to blow up more than likely. And I hope it doesn't, but I'm not going to change my program because somebody just doesn't like that. Last time I checked, I turned out over 100 engine builds since February. And, we're cutting down on how many engines we built, instead of fighting this battle like everybody else is fighting. And we talked about this, Bobby, where everybody out there in the automotive industry is fighting with technicians. Like I was talking to a certified installer today, and he's like, it's going to take me a while to get this done because I'm here alone. Everybody's called in sick. I don't have anybody anymore, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm not playing that game. I don't want to be fighting the same game everybody else is. I basically just took my thumb and I stopped everything around here because I can do that. I'm in a position that I can do that. If I don't like things, I want to stop them. I'm not going to keep doing it because I have to, because I don't have to. At the end of the day, if I didn't want to do it, I wasn't going to do it. So what that means is, when we got a situation like this, we used to build about 50, 55 engines a year. Maybe 52 is the average, right? And we've been doing that amount of engines maxed out since 2009. It's been wide ass open the entire time. I never wanted to build more than that because we knew we couldn't support more than that. And I knew if I tried to build more than that, it was just going to be a bigger support nightmare. Every engine you build is more support. And I'm the guy that had to deal with that. So I didn't want to deal with it. So now our capacity is going to be 24 engines for the year. We basically cut it in half. 24 engines is all we're going to build. That's the maximum. That's the maximum I want to build. Does that mean we're going to build 24? No. We might build 20. At the end of the day, we're going to build whatever the hell we want to. Because the problem is, and nobody can see this unless you're on the inside looking out. But the problem is that you can't get components if you have high quality demands. What that means is we don't just take parts off the shelf and put them in these engines like everybody else. We don't just use what we can buy. We use what we've developed, what we can prove, and what we know is going to work. And that is the flat six difference. That defines it, right? So, if we know that we can only source the parts for that amount of engines and we can only have that amount made, and I can only develop X amount of things for LN Engineering to manufacture, because now my new role is I'm a freelance developer for LN. And I've developed more things for LN Engineering and for Flat Six in the last 10 months than I was able to do the entire 3 years before. Okay. New air boxes, all this camshaft stuff. A lot of it I already had, but I refined it. The X pipes, and there's 10 of those in stock at LN right now, right? Completely novel concept. That's a Flat Six Innovations. That's my thing. I came up with that. But at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. So, we're able to come up with these things so LN can manufacture these in the States. LN has become an absolute major manufacturer of engine components for these engines and for other engines. Charles develops things, cylinders for Rotax engines, right? Some of those are used in aircraft. So, I mean, it's not just Porsche stuff they're doing. The majority of it is Porsche stuff. But we've worked on things for other engines. I've worked on things for off-road vehicles, UTVs, ATVs, motorcycles, snowmobiles. I'm an engine guy. I don't care what it goes in. I really don't care what it goes in. I'm just an engine guy. So what this means is we're able to not just build engines now. I'm overseeing the engine building, and I've kept the people here that really want to be here, and they've been here for years. My newest employee has been here for 10 years. That's the newest employee. The longest time employee has been here since 1998, okay? And all of us, when I got sick last year, we stepped back and we're like, look, we're tired of fighting a schedule that is damn near impossible to do, because I came up with these schedules before COVID, and we tried to maintain the same thing. We've only been late with one job since COVID happened, but that's a damn miracle. And we have not changed the budget on a single engine, and I refuse to. Okay. So while everybody else is making COVID excuses about why they're late and why it's more money, I have not done either one of those two.
Let me ask you a question based on that. What do you say to people that are considering Porsche's short block program?
That's for another day. We'll get off on a tangent with that. The only thing I'll say is there may be more options in the future. All I'll say. That's for another RENNCAST, but there may be more options in the future for that, based on a Porsche crankcase from the factory. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. And you might want to wait on buying one of those if you want to buy one, but that's all I'm going to say. So, getting in, you asked about the procedure and you asked about some of that other stuff, and I got off on a little bit of a tangent because I'm on these freaking antibiotics and I'm on this crazy holistic medicine. And dude, I drink this nastiest stuff on the planet. It's got garlic and thyme. I mean, it's got 80 things. Yeah. It's detoxifying and all this crap. I mean, it's horrible. It really is. No. I mean, the medicine is worse than the illness. I swear to you, it's horrible. But I haven't missed it. But I was thinking today, even though I was so sick, I haven't missed a day of work. I haven't.
Well, that's what you got to do. You got to keep going on. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't missed a day. I haven't missed a single day. I wanted to, but
Well, that's good. That's one thing that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I sucked it up and I dealt with it. So, okay, so let's get back on topic.
We were talking about what had changed and, talking about the process of ordering one of your engines.
Okay, so we talked about what didn't change. What has changed is the process. You're not dealing with me, but you don't have to. You're dealing with people that are trained, and they're nicer than I am, and they're easier to deal with than I am. At the end of the day, Judd has been a great employee for me. He's going to the LN side March 1st. He won't be working at Flat 6 anymore. He will be supporting and directing the sales of those engines. So the ticketing system stays the same. The phone numbers stay the same. You'll call and talk to Judd just like you always have. The only difference is that the sale goes through LN Engineering. That's the difference. And I'm not part of it, but I don't need to be. And so last year, I took myself out of the equation. I haven't talked to a customer in months. And it's because I was throwing Judd to the dogs. Here, I'm training you how to do this. You've been here for 10 years. You see how this works. You've developed a lot of this stuff. So that is the major thing that's changed. And I will say now, the only thing that's changed is the way these engines are purchased and the way these engines are supported. That is it. That is it. Everything else is the same. Now, what goes along with that is you can't send your car to Flat 6 Innovations anymore because we don't have a repair shop. We don't have that anymore. So now I want to get into the ordering process with that little bit of lead in. Okay, so I'm going to take you hypothetically through what someone is going to experience when they call up to buy an engine from Flat 6 Innovations or they send a ticket. So flat6innovations.com/support. You go there, go ahead and create a login and register and log in. Okay, that's key number one, because when you do that, it gives you the ability to send attachments, and it gives you more perks, and it gives you a better communication experience. Okay, so set that up. It is better to do this than it is to call, because calling is just going to basically, you're going to be told you need a ticket so we can send you information so you can get an application. Okay, so person sends in the ticket, Judd replies to the ticket. They're going to say my car's yellow. They're usually going to say I'm an engineer, I'm this, I'm that. And they're going to say either their engine is failed or they want to do an elective build. Now, one of the big things that's changed is if your engine is failed, you're disqualified. We're not dealing with it. Now, there is one caveat to that, one difference that we will accept with that. If you have bore scoring, we do not consider bore scoring a catastrophic failure. And people don't drive the cars long enough in 90% of the cases for that bore scoring to ever do any collateral damage. So we are not worried about bore scoring. I do not consider it a failure. Even though your engine will fail due to bore scoring, I do not consider it a failure for the definition of failure in this program. The only other failure that we may accept on a case-by-case basis when the panel reviews your application is an IMS bearing failure. That's it. If you start out your ticket saying, I blew my engine up on the track, don't even bother sending it, because we know there's nothing left of your engine. And we know trying to sell you an engine is going to be a pain in the ass, because you're going to have a blown up, destroyed core, and we're going to let the other guy rip you off for $10,000 or $15,000 on his core charge. Okay. And that's exactly what will happen. You've got to watch that. Okay. So that is the biggest thing that has changed, is no more failures. Now, we do have a lead on a lot of cores that are low mileage and things like that. We've got a huge core bank as well. This rule about no failures may not stay the same. Okay. So if you're watching this 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, at least start that ticket, right? If you got an early car, let's say your car's a 99996. I've got 50 cores for that are low mileage, right? They're easy to find. With that, the review panel that reviews your application may accept that failure, but they're not even going to want your old engine back. They're just going to say for X amount of dollars, you can buy this as an outright engine. But that's never going to happen to a guy that has an M9701 Carrera S 3.8 engine. It's never going to happen to a guy with an M9605 base model 3.6. It's never going to happen to a guy with an M9721 in a Cayman S or a 07 and 08 Boxster S. It's never going to happen. Those cores are titanium clad gold. You cannot find them, and they all fail the same way. Okay. So getting back to the process, I just wanted to throw that in there about the failures and what we're not going to be doing. We don't want to deal with the drama of that. And it's drama and it's extra work that you can't charge for. Trying to find those cores that everybody needs the same way is a pain in the ass. Okay, so you start the ticket. You say, my engine's failed or is elective. Here's a picture of my car, blah, blah, blah. And Judd will respond back, and he will send you several questions. Those questions, this is all directed. It's going to happen the same way for everybody every time, just like clockwork. Those questions ask you specific things about what you're looking for with a car, blah, blah, blah. You'll answer that, comes back, and part of that is, do you want an application? Okay. If you send that message back and you say, yes, I do want an application, then Judd will send you a very in-depth application that asks about you, where you're at, how you drive the car, the history of the car, things like, has the engine been rebuilt before? Okay. Because if it's been rebuilt by somebody else, we're probably not going to accept it. The review panel is going to look at it and say, nope, potential drama. Nope, we're not doing it. Okay. So if you're the guy that's got an elective job, you want to fix it before it breaks, you've got less than 120,000 miles, you answer all the questions right, including the last question that says, if this engine were to fail the day that you took delivery of your car, what would you expect and how would you conduct yourself? And I want honest answers, right? If you answer all those questions right, the review panel, who is more than me, honestly, I hadn't even looked at the last 4 of them, is going to look at that and say, okay, either you're a fit or you're not. If you're not a fit, disqualified, we're going to tactfully tell you that we can't help you. If you are qualified, there's two possibilities of a qualification level. And this is based solely on the mileage and the application of the new engine that's going to go in. So basically, let's say if you answer that back and say, I've got less than 120,000 miles and this is elective, more than likely, if all the planets align and you answer the questions right, you're going to be qualified as tier 1. Okay. If you come back and say, I do 50 track days a year, I do this, I do that, or I've got 140,000 or 180,000 miles, especially if you've got 180,000 miles, anything over 120,000 miles, you're automatically going to go to tier 2. Whether it's elective or not, whether you've answered all the other questions or not, you're going to tier 2. So now let me explain to you the differences between tier 1 and tier 2. And basically that is when you get offered an engine. Okay. Because the next part of this process, after you've been qualified and after you've had your tier selection or you've been disqualified, you will end up going onto a notification list. Now, notice I did not call this a wait list. It's a notification list because we don't want a deposit. Nobody wants your money at this point because honestly, we don't want you to have leverage to say, when's it going to be done? Because we don't work from schedules anymore. And moreover, we don't work from budgets anymore because every engine takes as long as it takes to build and it costs whatever it costs to create. Both of those things vary greatly in 2023 in this post-COVID world period. Don't care what you think about it. That's the way that it works. So if you're qualified as that tier 1, you are going to be notified that we have completed an engine first. So case in point, we sold the first engine for a 3.8 Carrera S about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. When we sold it, there was a wait list. I call it wait list when it's not, notification list with 44 people on it at tier 1. We had another 24 at tier 2. So over the time that engine was being built, I kept every spec inside of it. Hundreds of pictures, about 400 photos, about 40 minutes of video about creating it, what went into it. Here's video of the balancing. Here's this, here's that. Here's the blueprints of this engine. Here's the component list of everything that's in this engine, because every engine is a little bit different based on what it needed and what we wanted to apply to it. The level of blueprint that went into it, the level of balance that went into it. All those things are different per engine. So then that engine went live at 3 o'clock on January 10th, and it lasted 40 seconds. It was bought in 40 seconds. Okay. And it sold for $39,139. Not every engine is going to cost that. Some are going to be more expensive. Some are going to be a little bit less. But we're not building these cheap because we're not haphazardly putting them together out of the minimum things they need. We're giving them everything that I want to give them to make them continue and perpetuate what Flat 6 Innovations has been about all these years. So it lasted 40 seconds and it was done. Okay. That person and everybody else on the notification list got a message saying that engine was going live at this day. They got that 2 weeks ahead of time. They were sent a link 3 days ahead of time. When that link went live, they bought the engine. Boom, it's done. And there was like 4 guys on top of it pounding trying to get it. They missed it by seconds, okay? At least 4. I think there was 12, but there was at least 4. So that worked out flawlessly. So that explains to you how the notification list works. In the ticketing system, we have the ability to strike one key and send a message out to everybody in a category. So when we separate you, Tier 1 and Tier 2, category M9701, Stage 2, 4-liter, boom, that's you. Now, Tier 2, a Tier 2 guy would get second notification. So let's say, for whatever reason, nobody in Tier 1 wanted that engine. Or let's say the guy in Tier 1 bought it, but he failed to pay for it in 3 days. Or 10 days or whatever you're given. I'm not being part of sales, so I don't know. It's either 3 or 10. I don't even care. But basically, If that engine doesn't get purchased, then it goes to tier 2. And the guys that are on the tier 2 notification list for that engine get to fight over it. Okay. And if it doesn't sell at tier 2, I'll probably take it outside and run it over with a tank. But that's never going to happen. Never going to happen, right? I mean, people want what we create. They actually want what we create more than we want to sell it.
Let me ask you a
Is that
crazy.
crazy? That's crazy, right?
Let me ask you a crazy question.
What's that?
I think I know your answer to this.
No, that's always my answer. After February of last year, the answer is freaking no. No, no, no. I don't even want your money. No.
Okay, let me, for the sake of the audience, let me ask this crazy question. All right, so someone goes out and buys a 996. We know we're talking 20+ year car. They get a warranty with it.
Oh God, just throw it away. It's bullshit.
They get a warranty with it. And a week or two down the road, they have engine failure. Can they come to you and get let's just say it needs another engine. The engine went pop. Do you want to deal with a warranty company?
Hell no. I haven't done. The last time I did that was 2009. No, I will not deal with it. You're dealing with some cubicle sitting, polyester suit wearing puke who is trying to say that he doesn't even, they don't even know what IMS bearing is. They don't know what any of this stuff is, and they get paid reverse commission. They get paid on how much they save the company. So it's their goal to piss you off to the point where you just give up on the warranty completely and just fix it because you get so sick of not having the car, you got to have it. It's their goal to piss you off and create enough drama and stress that you give up on the warranty. So I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. The only company I will ever deal with, and I've actually dealt with these guys, LaSalle Warranty Company, LASALLE. We have done a lot of Porsche work for them, right? Not for their insured, but for them. And the guy who runs it is also a former Marine. When he called me up and wanted to give me that work, I'm like, dude, I hate every one of you people. You're a Marine, but I'm sorry you chose to be in the scum of the earth business. It's horrible. All you guys suck. And he's like, look, please give me a chance. I've got to get this car fixed and nobody else can fix it. It's been to 4 different shops. I'm like, I know what's wrong with it. I said, okay, this is the deal. You're paying for me. You're paying me up front, period. You're paying me all of it up front. And if it ends up costing more, you're still going to pay me more later, but you're going to pay me everything up front. He did it. He always did what he's supposed to do. I fixed like probably 8 or 10 cars for him over the years, bore scoring usually. But they got big standards. He won't just insure any car, right? But he's solid. The only guy out there, period. Fidelity, all these other companies, nothing but problems, man. Nothing but problems. Constant bullshit all the way around. Don't even go there. That's all I got to say.
Oh yeah, and they stall. I think a lot of people, more than we realize, have gone through this, where these insurance warranty companies will just drag you through the ringer to hope that you'll give up because they keep asking. I can tell you, my grandfather, who was a World War II vet, had a small policy, life insurance policy, and my father could not ever get that money from that company because they would always be stalling him to the point that they knew that he wouldn't get a lawyer because it was only like $5,000. And the lawyers talked to my dad free and said, look, Mr. Mitchell, I mean, this is how they work. They know you're not going to pay a lawyer because it costs more for us to take this case on than the policy's worth. And they keep stalling and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to send this. The big thing was the death certificates. They would say, well, you sent that in to this person, but she's no longer with us.
Yeah.
And so they keep shifting around and shifting around.
Yeah. Anything they can do to piss you off and make you just go ahead and fix the car. Because if you go ahead and fix it, then they know you're going to drop the case because now it's fixed and you don't want to deal with them. So we don't deal with them. We never will deal with them. LaSalle is the only guy. He won't even insure these M9X cars anymore because they're too old. But a newer car, yeah, I think it's got to be 10 years old and it has to have something like under 40,000 miles or something like that. But check him out because he's solid. He's a solid guy, and he owns the place, and he dealt with me straight out. So now let's get back on the process. So now I've helped you understand that we're not taking blown up stuff. We prefer elective jobs, but we take light failures like a bore scoring failure, which really, like I said, isn't a failure. And we explained the notification list and what tier 1 and tier 2 is. Now, the reason why I did tier 1 and tier 2 is straightforward, because these engines now are a whole commodity. Let's say that this cup that I've got here is an engine, right? And before, you would take your engine, take your car, you'd send me your car. I would pull this engine out of the car, I would build this engine, and then I would put this engine back in the car. We're not doing that anymore. The reason why is because if we do that, then we have to be bound to a schedule, and we have to be bound to a cost. That's considered basically automotive repair. We're not doing that anymore. So now what we're doing is I have a tremendous amount of low mileage cores that are complete engines that we know where they came from. And we know what killed them. And these are not engines that were just patched together from a bunch of junkyard parts, right? I've been doing this a long time. These cores didn't used to be worth very much money. So every November, back when Porsche was selling a lot of these engines, they would have a sale, and you could buy engines and you didn't have to give a core back. So people would then sell their cores for more money than Porsche would give you for the core. So I bought a lot of these cores cheap, and I've been hanging on to them for a later date. They might have had a light failure like bore scoring or something like that, but we know the mileage, we know what happened to them, and then we've kept them all together. We don't just take it all apart and mix it up and put it back together again as another engine. We keep that engine together. Its heads belong to it, its block belongs to it, its crank, its carrier. It is its engine, because we're not building mass production. We're the other way.
And another question I've seen quite often is, can you mix the shells of the case, the block?
If your standards are low enough, you can do anything, Bobby. If your standards are low enough, you'll build an engine in 4 hours.
And I always say, no, you want to keep the original core together.
Yeah.
Both shells, because the way
But
it was
again,
machined.
what is your goal? What is your goal? Is your goal an engine that gets built in 4 hours? It's not balanced. It doesn't have anything in it that it didn't absolutely have to have, and you just put a used water pump back on it. Is that your goal? Or do you want something that is comprehensive? Do you want something that's got the original parts that came out of it? It wasn't built in 4 hours. It took longer than 4 hours just to do the cam timing, right? And that's not because the guy's slow. It's because he checks it 7 times. Because we treat these things like they have wings, not wheels, because of my background and because we have great attention to detail and we're methodical. But at the end of the day, it's all what you're looking for. A lot of people don't care about us doing that. Like, people say, oh, you're taking that too far. That's overkill. No, it's not. Overkill doesn't exist in my world. On this property, there's no such thing as overkill. It doesn't exist. It never will. You can't ever build it good enough. I look at it that way. So now, with this new program, we have these core engines, and we build this engine up. We take the whole thing, we build it up to the best it can be, with all those things addressed, all the components addressed, all the labor problems addressed, the balancing addressed. And it's built by somebody that has a minimum of 10 years of M96, M97 engine building under their belt as a minimum. As a maximum, is going to be somebody that's been building these engines, or Porsche engines, and a lot of engines for I think maybe 50 years at this point, 45, 50 years at this point. I mean, he's been with me since 1998. Started out doing air-cooled stuff, obviously. But we're able to build the engine up and complete it and say, this is what you're going to get. Here is every picture. Here's every specification. Here's everything inside of it. And here's the exact cost of this engine. And here's the history of it. Here's how many miles it had. Here's the teardown photos of this engine when we took it apart. We have all this. We recorded all. So that is kind of the difference. So now, the way the process works, once you are the lucky owner and you've been able to go in there like Sean Burke and buy that engine in 40 seconds and you pay for it, I'll tell you what happened to Sean. He's going to be a guest on with us here in a couple of weeks. He was going to be on tonight, but he didn't have the car back because of weather. So he bought the engine on the 10th of January, paid for it right away. The engine was then was picked up, taken to the certified installer. The certified installer grabbed his car. He had the engine and the car in his trailer, and he took it to the shop. He swapped the engine out. He pulled the old core out, went through my process on the checklist, cleaned up all the pieces, put them on the new engine, followed the checklist, put the engine in the car. The car was restored back to life on the 18th day of January. It was done on the 19th day of January with all the 100 miles put on it, the whole 9 yards, done. Never in the history of this engine program, with me doing air-cooled or water-cooled stuff, have we turned around a car in 8 freaking days. It's never happened. So we did this the first try. So I don't want people to think that this is something that's long and convoluted. It's a hard process. It's not. It's very quick and easy. You get an application, you fill it in, the review panel looks at it, you're put in tier 1 or tier 2, or you're disqualified. Then you get a notification that we've finished an engine. Here's everything about the engine. You're told when you can buy it. You're the guy that hits the button. You buy it. You pay for it. It goes to the certified installer closest to you, and he swaps the engine out. Not all of them can get it done in 9 days, but most of the super certified installers that I'm working with are promising us that they can prioritize your car and get the engine put in it in 10 days. Or at least start the swap process in 10 days, because it's important that we get your core back, because your core is now going to end up going back into the program in its complete form after it's torn down and then resold. So that's the cool thing about the tier 1 and tier 2. I did that because I didn't want a guy that had a 180,000 mile engine as a core able to buy a 120,000 mile core. That's not fair at all. I didn't want the guy that had a 120,000 mile or even a 60,000 mile car with an elected build to get a core that had 180 or 200,000 miles on it. That's really not fair. So I took all this into account and made it where it was easy and it was fair. So people that have a lower mileage engine get a lower mileage core back. Now, I will say there are some caveats to this. And the only time that an engine would be built from a customer's existing engine is if a super certified installer is able to pull that engine out and then put the same engine back in the car. And that car is a special car, not meaning that it's special to you, because they're always special to the owner. It is a special car. It's an anniversary car. It's a GT car. It's something that's special. It's something that needs to retain its original engine serial number. The other cars don't care. Okay. I would even call a Targa a special car because those cars are appreciating. I would call a Targa a special car. I would call some C4Ss a special car. Okay. Definitely your 04 anniversary cars, any of your cars that came factory with the X51 power kit or X51 kit, those are special enough for the review panel to at least look at it and say, let's present this to Flat 6 and let's see if they would be willing to build this engine. But if that happens, it's an open checkbook affair with no proposed cost. It's an open schedule with no proposed completion date. You're going to be completely wide open. We're not even going to give you a wild ass guess as when it's going to be done, because I refuse to have anybody ever say, is it done yet? Or that costs too much. It's just not going to happen. I'm in a position where I don't have to deal with it, and I'm not going to. So I hope that kind of helps everybody explain or understand this. There's still more to it. There's going to be a lot of posts about this coming up. This is the first time we've mentioned this. I've been working up to this point for 11 months now, almost a year at this point. And we're almost at the finish line. And we didn't tell anybody anything for a long time, but we're really close to the end of the line now. And it's time for people to start understanding what we're creating.
So the guys on YouTube are asking about updates on Sumabore.
Okay, so Sumabore, don't wait for it, because we're not going to release it to the general public until we can no longer do Nickel engines, because the EPA has killed it. So don't be waiting on it. You could be waiting for a decade. We're going to keep developing it. We're going to keep pushing the limits with it. We had a 4.4 liter R44 that originally we built with Nickel, I think in 2018 or 19. The guy put about 40,000 miles on it. He is in a very, very cold climate. It gets down to -40 where he's at. And he sent it back because he has been working with us for a while on doing development work. And he's like, I want Sumabore. So we took that particular block and we reprocessed it with all the same parts, except for the different ring package, except for the different pistons. We put it back together as an R44 with Sumabore. It picked up 15 more horsepower, and that engine's making right at 400 at the wheels now. Before it was like 378, 380, something like that. So it's right at 400 at the wheels, and it's still got stock exhaust on it, right? Still got stock mufflers on it. It doesn't have my crazy intake on it. It's got a regular Carrera S intake on it with even a stock airbox. Is making all that power with those stock parts on it. So I'm sure that we'll easily break 4 at the wheels once it gets my my RX 3900 intake system and all that. But yeah, if you're waiting on Sumabore, stop, because we're not going to do it until we can no longer do Nickel legally. That's the whole reason we're doing this. We're taking the time to develop it, spend the money on it, have it all perfected, have all the test work done. That's why we're trying to test it -30 weather. So basically, we know when it's done, boom, right there. And if somebody starts getting on our heels and they start coming up with something new and we decide we want to really throw a curveball at them, then we can use Sumabore whenever we want to. We can bring it out whenever we want to. It's fully developed at this point. We've got the ring package down. Everything's done. It's just exceptionally expensive at this point. And that's the reason why we're not going to offer it.
Gotcha. And, Nickel seems to be serving us very well. So no
Yeah,
harm,
there's no
foul.
reason to get away from it. I mean, it works. It does everything perfectly. I mean, any engine program in the world with these engines is respected uses Nickel. The guys that use cast iron, they're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. They know what they're doing is not the best thing, but they sell it cheap enough that they think it's okay. It's easy for them to go down to the place that makes the sleeves and have something thrown in the block, and they can turn it around quick. That's the reason why a lot of them use steel and iron sleeve stuff. It's because they can turn it around in hardly any time. They don't have to wait for months for the Nickel process, right? So it's all about what's easy for them. They have to have cash flow. A lot of these shops, you guys probably don't realize it, but they rob Peter to pay Paul all the time. Sometimes these shops, especially today, they're wondering how they're going to make payroll at the end of the week. It's been a long time since I was there. It's been 20 years, 18 years since I was at that point. And it sucks. But, that's something people have to think about. The shop is not always going to do what is best for you. They got to make money and they've got to have cash flow. And if the car sits there and they can't turn it around, it's a liability for them.
All righty. Well, it's the 2-hour mark. Unless you have something else to add, this has been a great show. I really enjoyed it. And I know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe if I take a couple minutes to summarize things and answer some questions I know is going to be out there.
Okay.
Any certified installer that has the certified installer banner, has it on the website, is listed on the IMS Solutions site, will soon be listed on the Flat Six Innovation site. They can install these engines, and you can buy the engine directly from Flat Six Innovations through LN, or you can end up letting the certified installer purchase the engine. It doesn't matter. They'll be able to do it both ways. And, send a ticket in, get an application, fill in the application, get your qualification level, and then you just wait for a message to come through. And you're on that notification list. And the thing I'll say is some people could be on a notification list for one day and end up winning this engine now. Before you had to wait a year or 20 months. We could literally have a guy join the notification list tomorrow. Then I finish an engine on Monday. It goes live on Wednesday. He gets a notification and he's the lucky guy that's able to push the button first, he could be on that wait list for less than a week. He could have the engine installed in less than a month. That's crazy. But he has to do his part because we're not helping him, right? Judd's not helping him. Here's your link. Everybody's got an equal chance. No, we're not giving anybody any favors. We're not telling you that it's live early. There's no favoritism. Once you're qualified in a tier, everybody's qualified the same way. You all have an equal chance. And then it's a feeding frenzy. It's not an auction. It's a feeding frenzy. It's got one known price, and that's it. And you're able to know exactly what it costs and exactly what's inside of it. And you know what you're buying. And you know what you're buying up front. So to me, I think that it's a lot better to do it this way in today's world, because people are about instant gratification and they're about being absolute with things. So they want to know exactly what's in it. They want to know exactly what it costs. We're giving them all that. And they're able to have it installed without shipping the car all the way to Flat 6 anymore. You don't have to do that. You can ship it to Atlanta Speedworks at the old Flat 6 Innovations location, but you don't have to. You know, if you're in LA, you can take the car to Callis Rennsport. You know, if you're in Florida, there's a couple of certified installers there. We got a lot of these certified installers now. You know, we've got Philip Raby in the UK, certified installer, right? We're training our UK guys, we're training our European guys in the next month, doing the rest of the training with them. So this isn't limited to the States. It really never has been. I shipped an engine to Australia yesterday. You know, we've always done international work, but the difference is now it's easier to support this stuff. We don't have to have 150 tickets back and forth over an 18-month period. You could basically end up owning one of these engines and have it installed in your car in a week. And Sean did that.
Sounds good, man.
And you know what? You also still have the known result of what it's going to be. It's the same combinations. We know exactly what it's going to do. You know, we've got all the comparisons. We've got the recipes. Nothing changed with the recipes. Nothing changed with the parts. We just basically made it where we've got X amount of parts, and we're going to maximize what we can do with them, and we're going to do it when we want to and how we want to. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's what most people worry about. Is anything in the quality of the engine going to be changed? Is it still going to be what it's always been, a top-notch engine that's going to last their lifetime or more?
Well, I think, Bobby, it's better. Okay, so case in point, this last engine we just finished had more base options in it than most people would ever put in that engine if they were able to option it themselves. Like in the old program, here's your proposed engine, and here's a list of things that you can add on to it for X amount of dollars if you want to. This engine got all that. It got the piston updates. It got the ring upgrades. It got all of that. And the reason I did it that way is because if I'm doing it all the way or not at all, right? And as soon as I said, okay, you know, let's make this one where it doesn't have fillet rods. Let's make it where it doesn't have this. Let's save some money on it. Then everybody that wanted to buy it would want it with all that stuff added into it. And so the lesser item doesn't sell as well. So I'm like, look, we're throwing everything at it except for the kitchen sink. It gets everything. So that's a different way of doing it. Now, you know, times change. The cars change. That was an M9701 Carrera S 3.8. That's the highest demand engine. They failed the most. They have the most bore scoring. They have the most problems right now. So, you know, and people want to spend money on those engines because they have a vehicle that's a great vehicle all the way around it, and it's holding great value, especially if you put one of these engines in it. So, in case in point with that, a 2007 997 Carrera S Targa with over 100,000 miles on it with one of my R40 4.1 liter engines in it sold for $90,000. It sold for that. Okay. It didn't even have to get marketed anywhere. It was a private sale for 90 grand. Okay. So these engines make the vehicle more valuable, period. And now with a new program and all this other stuff that we're doing, LN's even going to end up supporting the purchasers of the vehicles better than we did. Because before, if a guy bought a car that had our engine in it, I was loyal to my purchaser, period. The guy that paid me, that's my guy. And a lot of people never agreed with that. People on the forums like, oh, you shouldn't do that. No, sorry, man. Everybody else that buys this car is not my problem. I'm dealing with the guy that paid me. I'm loyal to him. I owe him something. Everybody beyond that, I don't. LN's not going to do that. They have the support and the capacity to support those people that buy these cars second, third, or fourth hand. Okay. So it's going to be better all the way around for these engines and these cars. There's things that are going to be done that I would have never done because I'm not in customer service. I'm just a developer. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Jake. I want to say too, as a side note, I want to thank everybody that's been watching on YouTube. And please consider becoming a subscriber. It's free, no charge to you. If you want to support us and get access to exclusive material that we produce, you can become a full member. And we would really appreciate that. And of course, please check in with us. We have a Facebook group. It's called a Do It Yourselfers, the RenVision Facebook group that you can page actually. You can actually check in on if you want to see future content. But the best way to do it is just become a subscriber to RenVision. Okay. And thank you, Jake. And hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah. Thank you, Jake.